G'day everybody. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the tragic events of the night of the 17th and 18th of May 1987 when an Iraqi aircraft fired two Exocet missiles into the side of the USS Stark warship and killed 37 seamen, injuring 21 others. Another tragic event, I'm afraid. There's a couple of them on my YouTube channel, but this video is going to go into some detail about the night of the 17th and 18th of May 1987 when the USS Stark was hit by two Exocet missiles and 37 seamen were killed. The Stark was sailing in the Arabian Gulf at the time, was about 75 miles northeast of Bahrain when the incident took place. And I will be describing my contact, my involvement in the events, because I was an air traffic controller in Bahrain at the time, and Bahrain was the rescue coordination center for the Gulf. And we came on duty that night just as the incident occurred. So this is a map of the Gulf at the time. As you can see, Iraq is up here, Iran is all of this area here, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, Bahrain down here, and the UAE, Straits of Hormuz. The war between Iran and Iraq had been in progress for many years, each side trying to disrupt the oil supplies of the other to cut off their income. The tankers of both sides were often attacked, and to try and secure the oil supplies, the Western countries, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom, had flotillas of warships in the Gulf to try and protect the tankers. In fact, at one stage, the United States put the Kuwaiti tankers on the United States register so that they could defend them, protect them properly. So these are the areas that were subject to wartime activity. Obviously the land war took place in this area, but down the Gulf, right the way around to the Straits of Hormuz here, which is where Iran had its oil installations for transmitting oil out of the Gulf, they were subject to attack by Iraqi aircraft, and the Iranians would fly aircraft into the Gulf to attack the Iraqi tankers. The USS Stark was attacked at 22:10 local time, or 19:10 Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Coordinated Time on that night, and in that approximate position. So you can get some idea of what the airspace arrangements were like in the Gulf at the time. This is a map of the Gulf. To get it in its correct orientation, you actually have to rotate the map 30 degrees in a clockwise direction so that you get north to top. As you can see, Iraq is up at the northwest corner. You've got Kuwait here, Saudi Arabia down the western side, the peninsula of Qatar, the UAE on the eastern side, and Iran all the way along here. I've picked out the coastline in blue. Bahrain with these islands here. The Flight Information Region boundary, which is the airspace boundary between Tehran to the north and Bahrain to the south, followed this dotted line down the Gulf, right down the middle of the Gulf. The Stark was attacked in that position, which you can see is just inside the Tehran FIR, but was in international waters, so it was allowed to be there. The Stark was attacked on the Bahrain 063 at 75 miles. Another significant piece of airspace is down here to the southwest, which is the AWACS Airspace, Oscar Echo Romeo 44, which was permanently active between flight levels 270 and 310. The US military operated 3 AWACS aircraft, Boeing E-3A Sentries, up and down this airspace, one at a time, so they had 24-hour coverage. And the AWACS aircraft plays a significant role during the events. This aircraft is a Mirage F1, painted in Iraqi colours, although it doesn't have the Iraqi national designator on them. It was ready for delivery when the Iraq military supplies were embargoed, and so it was never delivered. Now, in my research for this video, I discovered that apparently the Mirage F1 could only mount one Exocet missile. I have seen some argument that it was modified to take 2. We know that 2 were fired. The other argument is some people say that there was a Dassault Falcon 50 executive jet which was sent to France for modification as a longer range attack aircraft, and it could mount 2 Exocets. I don't know. Anyway, the sequence of events that I'm going to describe I found on www.history.navy.mil, and I've edited them for brevity. So the Stark was operating close but outside the declared exclusion zone to the north end of the Arabian Gulf, and was in condition 4, which is what was called peacetime steaming. The US Air Force E-3A AWACS aircraft detected and reported to Stark that the Iraqi aircraft was heading south on a standard attack profile when the aircraft was still 200 miles from Stark. Stark's skipper, Captain Glenn Brendel, asked to be informed if the aircraft developed into a threat, but then left the bridge. The SPS-49 radar operator on the Stark recommended to the Tactical Action Officer, TAO, to issue the standard radio warning to the aircraft that it was approaching a US Navy vessel and risked being fired upon. The TAO opted to wait. At 21:07, I think they're using Saudi time because it was 22:07 Bahrain time, the Iraqi jet fired an Exocet missile at a range of 22 miles from the Stark. At 21:08, a minute later, the Stark issued a radio warning via the military distress frequency 243.0 MHz at about the same time that the aircraft launched the second Exocet at a range of 15.5 miles. The aircraft turned away without acknowledging the call. Almost simultaneously with the launch, the Stark detected the Iraqi aircraft's fire control radar lock onto the ship, and her port lookout spotted a missile inbound. The Stark took no defensive measures. The first missile penetrated the port side 13 feet above the waterline, just under the port bridge wing, in approximately that position. The warhead did not detonate. The missile severed firefighting water lines to the forward part of the ship. It broke apart and spilled rocket fuel, which ignited. The fire spread quickly to the critical combat operations center, from where the ship's weapons are controlled. 25 seconds later, the second missile hit a few feet after the first and exploded in a crew compartment, blowing a huge hole in the side of the ship. The heat from the fires was sufficient to melt the aluminium superstructure and the decks, and the acrid blinding smoke impeded damage control efforts. Water from the pumps deployed to fight the fires turned to steam. So much water was used that the ship started to list. So Captain Brindle ordered the starboard side to be flooded so as to keep the hole on the port side above the waterline. This action helped keep the magazines cool and preserve some ship stability. The attack hit the command centre, so some of the communications were severed, and the firefighters often could not communicate with each other directly. The men used 40 oxygen breathing apparatus canisters, which was 18 above their normal allowance of 22. These canisters provided oxygen for a limited time, but were all used by 0115, effectively halting their efforts to fight the blaze until a boat from the USS Waddell and another from the USS LaSalle brought additional canisters. The attack destroyed the ladder ascending to the next deck, and as some of the men ran out of air, they had to choose between the raging fires and the sea, so they jumped out of the hole in the side of the ship. 29 men died from the initial explosion and fire, including 2 lost at sea. 8 later died from their injuries. 21 were wounded. So that's what happened at sea before we came on duty, my watch came on duty in the Bahrain Air Traffic Control Center. So here's a map of the local area. Saudi Arabia to the west, Bahrain Island in the middle there, Qatar, and Iran up to the northeast. It's worth noting that Dhahran International Airport was the only airport in the area in Dhahran, and Bahrain only had one airport as well at that time. So we arrived on duty for the night shift at around 22:20 local time. And because we had one person extra to the number of positions that we had to staff, one person went on what's called first break, and that happened to be me on this night. So I didn't sit down at a control position until an hour later, when I gave a break to the person who'd been working the West radar for the first hour. And from now on I'm going to use Bahrain local time, and to get UTC you subtract 3 hours. So the ongoing shift reported that an unknown aircraft had appeared just north of Bahrain at flight level 257 climbing, which turned out to be Royal Saudi Air Force 888, a Lockheed P-3 Orion. Now, there were all sorts of strange things happened in the Arabian Gulf through the period that the Iran-Iraq war was in progress, but none so strange as the things that happened on this night. So, having an aircraft appear without calling anybody and without Dhahran notifying us that the aircraft was getting airborne was very unusual. Aircraft never got airborne without a call from Dhahran approach. And I didn't know the Saudi Air Force had any P-3s. We'd never seen them before, at least I'd never seen them before. And we surmised that perhaps it was a US Navy aircraft on a Saudi Air Force call sign. Another thing that happened was that the Sector Operations Center, which is called, we abbreviated to SOC, which was the Dhahran military ops room, had advised that they soon would have a flight departing from Dhahran to the northeast, non-squawk. I'd never heard of that before either. So the watch handover was still in progress when we received a telex. So some of you may not know, you younger folk may not know what a telex is, but it's a bit like an SMS text message. We received this from Bahrain Marine Radio, who are the people who communicated with all of the ships in the local area. And because we were the rescue coordination centre for the airspace and the local region, we used to get calls from them when ships needed support for whatever reason. So we received a telex from Bahrain Marine Radio, and it read, "Mayday from a US Navy warship that had been attacked, was on fire, and required assistance from all vessels in the area." So as I've mentioned, that was in that position. The oncoming and offgoing supervisors went through the procedure of informing all of the people on the call-out tree, as it was called. And if you're interested in what the call-out tree involved, there's a bit more information in my video of the crash of Angel 740, the helicopter. And because I was on first break, I assisted with this call-out. Bear in mind that it was a chaotic environment. There was a lot going on. We also had our normal air traffic control duties to undertake, and there was lots going on we'd never seen before. We had people bringing us up for all sorts of reasons to tell us stuff or to find out what was going on. One of the unusual things that I'd never seen before, was that Bahrain had launched a fighter and was doing a combat air patrol, and the route was from Bahrain, which was here, to Bahrain, down to the Hawa Islands, which is part of the Bahrain archipelago, and back up to Bahrain. It was non-squawk. We had no level information. We'd never seen it before, but it was no problem. It was out of our way. The traffic that we had didn't go in that direction, so we just worked round it. As I say, lots of people were telephoning, and we were getting messages which we weren't sure was true or not. For example, we heard that the stricken vessel already had a salvage tug next to it, and they used to hang around in the Gulf for such events as this, because if they could be the first to a stricken vessel and help them out, once every 2 years they paid for themselves. So during the first hour that I was on watch, the US Navy Sea King UH-3H helicopter, call sign Angel 740, nicknamed the Desert Duck, got airborne from Bahrain towards the scene, and the Desert Duck plays a big role in events through the night. This particular aircraft is Angel 746. As you can see, it's from HC-2, which was the US Navy Helicopter Combat Support Squadron based in Naval Station Norfolk, Virginia. They were dubbed the Fleet Angels, hence the call sign Angel 740. And you can see on here the nickname the Desert Ducks. These helicopters, the particular one that was based in Bahrain at the time, Angel 740, was providing logistics and communications to the US Navy warships in the Gulf, so passengers, mail, urgent supplies and stores and so on. So about an hour after we came on watch, I took over the west radar, and a couple of minutes after that, at about 23:23, we started hearing transmissions on 243.0, the UHF international distress frequency mainly used by the military. And I started to write down all I heard in case we needed to refer to it later. Fortunately, it wasn't a very busy night, and it didn't interfere with my work. But gradually we worked out that the ship that had been attacked was the USS Stark, and it had been hit by 2 missiles, and the USS Waddell was another ship steaming to its aid at 14 knots. Here's a picture of the USS Waddell. It became the on-scene coordination centre for the incident, and because of the damage to the communications centre on the Stark, they didn't have any powerful transmitters. They only had handheld radios, and I presume because they weren't using the full height of the mast, we were unable to hear most of what the Stark was saying. Many of the stations involved were also transmitting on other UHF and HF stations frequencies, but we were unable to hear them as we didn't have receivers for all of those frequencies. And it's important to note in this presentation that the transmissions that I heard and wrote down, this is not a continuous recording because I was doing my normal ATC duties at the same time. It's not like a transcript that air traffic controllers may be familiar with. As I say, I didn't hear most of what the Stark was saying, so they're all very one-sided conversations. The first section covers the period from 2340 to midnight. From Waddell to Stark. How many persons staged for evac? From Waddell to Stark. Understand 3 casualties, 2 burned, 1 smoke. Duck to drop the doctor to the deck for consultation and make a decision that way. 2343. Waddell to Stark. Roger. The doctor will be dropped first, the supplies second, then the helo will depart to look for the man in the water until the doctor makes his evaluation. 2347. Waddell to Stark. The duck is 14 miles from your position. We're standing by awaiting info from the duck. Waddell to Stark. Roger. OBA, believed to be oxygen breathing apparatus. Canisters, believed to be oxygen canisters. DC equipment, believed to be damage control. Waddell to Stark. Duck has 6 extra OBA and 17 canisters. Waddell to Stark. Duck also has 2 extra medical kits for use on your unit. 2354. Duck to Stark. Please say winds for your unit. Duck to Stark. Anybody on the flight deck give us their best guess for the winds. Direction only will be sufficient. Duck to Stark. Roger. Starboard 090. Duck to all stations. Keep guard, that's 243.0 megahertz, clear for duck transmissions with 9 Foxtrot, which is the call sign for Stark. All other transmissions on Helio standard operational frequencies. 2357. Duck to Stark. You are weak and hardly readable. I'm going to take 1 turn around and evaluate the situation. Waddell to Stark. Duck has 6 extra OBA and 17 canisters. Waddell to Stark. Duck also has 2 extra medical kits for use on your unit. At midnight, local time, I realized that I could see various blips on our primary radar, which, during the course of the events, I was able to identify as particular ships when aircraft reported landing on or leaving, departing a particular ship. I could see the aircraft depart and I could identify which ship was which and which aircraft was which. This is unusual. It happens sometimes. It happens all over the world. It's called anomalous propagation. It's a meteorological phenomenon where the inversion layer, which was common through the summer in Bahrain, forced the radio waves to, instead of flying straight out into space, they would bounce off the inversion layer, and therefore you could get a lot greater range than was normally the case. And in fact, on one occasion we could hear Karachi ATIS breaking through on our main frequency 126.7. Now the normal range for that frequency was probably 220 maybe nautical miles. Karachi ATIS was on the ground 900 nautical miles away, 1600 kilometers from us. So you can see how effective this ducting can be sometimes. Anyway, around that time we received another telex from Bahrain Marine Radio, slightly garbled, but when we corrected it, it said, "Fire uncontrolled and missile magazine on fire, water flooded starboard side, ship listing 10 to 12 degrees, ruptured fire mains, salvage tug alongside and fighting fire, presently not contemplating abandoned ship, Conningham 1 hour behind Waddell, Saudi naval warship 23 miles, closing in. At midnight, there was a call from Rainbow 2, which was the E-3A Sentry AWACS aircraft flying over eastern Saudi Arabia, to Waddell. The RSAF has a number of helos on standby at Bahrain and will scramble if necessary. Sierra Yankee to 9 Foxtrot. 9 Foxtrot, this is Sierra Yankee, do you read? Duck to Stark. Stark, roger. I want to take one turn around to evaluate the situation. Duck to Stark. Roger. Can I have your winds? Waddell to Stark. I hold you on my 100 at 12 miles. At 0027. Waddell to Stark. I'm going to lower both boats. I have mass of DC gear, including OBAs, canisters, dewatering equipment. Where do you want our boats to come alongside? Lima to Panther 2. Panther 2, this is Lima. Do you have mode 3 6021, which is a secondary surveillance radar squawk? Waddell to Stark. Roger. Relay from Duck. Do you have any medical evacuees, or has the doctor taken care of them? Papa 2 to Rainbow 2. Rainbow, this is Panther 2, do you read? 0039. Waddell to Stark. Relay from Duck. He will spend the next hour searching for the man overboard, and then if no luck, will take evacuees to Bahrain. 0042. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Reference to our last, request helos be scrambled this time. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Confirm helo report requested. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Affirm. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Military hospital in Dhahran standing by. How many helos are you requesting? Waddell to Rainbow 2. 2 sufficient. We need them for searching for the man overboard. Desert Duck has 50 mic, guessing minutes, endurance, and then he will be taking the evacuees to Bahrain. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Duck has visual contact with the man in the water. Waddell to Rainbow 2. From 452, another name for the Duck. Negative on man in the water. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Understand negative visual on the man in the water. 0046. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. 2 helos scrambled. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Interrogative type helos. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Not known what type, will advise. 0048. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. 2 UH-1 scrambled. Waddell to Stark. Forward, starboard quarter, interrogative name. Waddell to Stark. Understand negative name. 0051. Waddell to Stark. Visual with you, preparing to come alongside. 0054. Waddell to Stark. We have 1 P2 to give you. Where do you want us to put it? Waddell to Stark. Be advised, my boats will approach your stern with DC gear and dewatering gear. Waddell to Stark. P2504. Canister. DBA. Understand. 0056. What side do you want, port or starboard? Waddell to Stark. Understand P250 starboard side. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Farther, don't know what that means. Channel 30X. We are within 1 mile of Stark. Waddell to Stark. From Duck, confirm man in water had lit and inflated vest, or do you just suppose he had it? 0100. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Call signs of helos, Civil Defence 03 and 08. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Copy. Civil Defence 03 and 08. Interrogative nationality, Saudi? Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Confirm. Waddell to Stark. Roger, will direct all my equipment aft. 0105. Waddell to Stark. At the time of the attack, what was your course and speed? We're trying to backtrack to find the men in the water. Waddell to Stark. Roger. 0107. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Hospital medevac from Germany has been alerted. 0109. Waddell to Stark. Are you ready to receive the duck and pick up evacuees? Waddell to Stark. Understand negative. Duck to Waddell. Duck copies. A senior member of the air traffic control staff came into the ops room and then went to his office to monitor his frequency scanning radio, and he was able to monitor other frequencies, which was quite useful to work out what was going on. Many of the transmissions were going out on several frequencies at once, and this is a technique that's sometimes used in air traffic control, where you have an aircraft on, let's say, UHF, like the military, and an aircraft on VHF, a civil aircraft. You want them both to hear what's going on, so you broadcast on both frequencies at once. The next period covers 0120 to 0240. Waddell to Stark. Request assessment of your situation. Waddell to Stark. Roger. Power amidships. Fire above main deck out. Hose teams above and below mess decks. Can you direct me to the fire? CO Mideast wants an update. 0124. Waddell to Stark. Understand 1 30%, second and third degree, and 1 20%, first and second degree, and burns on eyes. We're receiving a flashing light. 1 dead, several missing. We'd like to know if that's coming from your ship or a command message. Waddell to Stark. Are casualties going to be evacuated in litters? 0128. Waddell to Stark. From Duck. He will be with you in 30 minutes. 0140. Waddell to Stark. A hole you could drive a truck through next to the missile magazine. 0142. Waddell to Stark. The Duck is inbound for medevac from you 060 for 13. Duck to Stark. Confirm you have green deck. 0150. Waddell to Stark. Doctor will remain with other casualties. Do litters have lines attached with weights for entry into helos? Waddell to Stark. Request update on extra casualties to pass back to not copied. Waddell to Stark. Duck inbound this time. Confirm green deck. 0151. Waddell to Stark. Duck requests state of injuries to ambulatory casualties. 0152. Waddell to Stark. Duck advises he has little bingo time left. Bingo time being time on station with sufficient fuel to divert to shore. 5 minutes maximum. Waddell to Stark. We're receiving a flashing light stating 3 dead. Confirm? Waddell to Stark. Are you sure you don't want to send passengers now? Waddell to Duck. Roger. Understand you're bingoing. Presumably the deck was unable to get a green deck because it was cluttered with DC gear and returned to Bahrain to refuel. Waddell to Unknown. Roger. Understand stable. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Charlie Delta 03 and Charlie Delta 08 airborne out of Dhahran right now. Do you need any more helos? Waddell to Rainbow 2. Don't know the answer to that. We'll get back to you. Waddell to Rainbow 2. Will all the helos have the same on-station time of 20 mic? Rainbow 2 to Waddell. We'll find out. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. 20 mic on station is best available. Do you want more helos? Waddell to Rainbow 2. 20 no good. He will get here and then he'll have to leave straight away. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Would it help if the aircraft was scrambled every 30 minutes? Waddell to Rainbow 2. Stand by, I'll check the plot and get back to you. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Helos advise they have 2 hours on station. 0222. The tower advised that he had declared an aircraft ground incident for a TriStar on the maintenance area, which had an APU fire, an auxiliary power unit. The fire service attended to put the fire out. It never rains, but it pours. 0225. Waddell to Stark. I can see the missile magazine through the hole. 0240. Rainbow 2 to Charlie Delta 8. Charlie Delta 8, this is Rainbow 2, how do you read? All Civil Defense helicopter comms with Rainbow were on 121.5 MHz, the VHF emergency frequency. Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2, you're Los Angeles, California. I'm guessing that means loud and clear. During this time we learned the side numbers of the 2 ships. Stark was 31, Waddell 24. Now at about 2:40 in the morning I went out onto the western apron, which was where the US Navy had their ramp where their helicopter parked. So some of the transmissions are missing here because I wasn't in the ops room to listen to them. Normally, the local air traffic control instructions were that the helicopters had to land on the runway, land and take off on the runway. But on this night, we made an exception so that they could land, save time, directly onto the Navy ramp. So I went out to make sure that it was clear of stuff. The next period covers 0320 until we went off watch at 0625. (0320) Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2 on VHF. What colour light and preserver were the men overboard wearing? This is because the Civil Defence helicopters 03 and 08 were in the search area from midnight. Rainbow 2 to Waddell on UHF. What colour light and preserver were the men wearing overboard? Waddell to Rainbow 2. White strobe light on body and orange preservers. And that was relayed back to Charlie Delta 8 on VHF. 0328. Waddell to Stark. Request current situation for relay to COM Mid-East. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Do you have a position for me to vector helos to men overboard? Waddell to Rainbow 2. 008 for 7.5 miles from Waddell. 0332. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Medivac from Rhine-Main, Germany. 0900 Zulu. 1100 local at Bahrain. That's the incorrect local Zulu conversion. It should have been 1200 local. Aircraft call sign is Aerovac 10 Echo 1, a Charlie 141, which is a Lockheed Starlifter. 0333, Stark to Waddell on another frequency. All fires appear out. Tug spraying water for cooling on deck. List 14 degrees. More than one missile. Repair party on board. Ship dead in water. No comms on board except handheld. 0337. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. What is your position? Waddell to Rainbow 2. North 2637, East 5202. Rainbow 2 to Waddell. What direction your current and speed? Waddell to Rainbow 2. 130 at 1 knot. So that was the position of the Stark when it was first hit. At 0337, Waddell reported the position of the two ships as in that position there, 2637 north, 5202 east, having experienced a drift of 130 degrees at 1 knot. 0340, Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2. We have 2 + 45, 2 hours and 45 minutes on station. 0352, Waddell to Stark. Understand you need emergency cutting outfit? 0353, Cunningham to Stark. We will provide emergency cutting gear since Waddell is out of the area now. Gone to search for 10 overboard. 0409, Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2. Charlie Delta 8 will be returning to refuel at 0130 Zulu to enable continuous coverage. 0500. There was a discussion about transferring OBAs and canisters. Duck on its way out again. We received a message in the ops room that the BBC World Service was reporting that the USS Stark was attacked by Iraqis and is burning, listing, and trying to get to its base in Bahrain. My comment at the time in my diary was, how do they get this stuff so fast? At 0520, Waddell to Rainbow 2, Charlie Delta 8 is making a crossing pattern, 130 diagonal 5, to compensate for the set and drift. BDF 06, BDF standing for Bahrain Defence Force, and BDF 07 arrive in 1 hour to search south. BDF 08 flying either side of Waddell track, at least 2 men overboard from blast. 0530, Duck returning with 2 casualties. 0540, Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2. Charlie Delta 8 has 0 + 30 minutes remaining on station. Charlie Delta 3 will be on station again in 4-5 minutes. 0605, Charlie Delta 8 to Rainbow 2. Charlie Delta 8 bingo and will return if required. 0620, Rainbow 2 to Waddell. Charlie 141 has departed Germany for Bahrain. 0625, we handed over watch to the morning shift and I departed the ATC Centre for home. The excellent photographer's Ephemeris website tells me that the nautical twilight for that day in the Arabian Gulf was 0400, that's the time at which things just become visible to the naked eye with the daylight coming up from the sun. Sunrise was at 0450, and at that point the scale of the damage to the ship became fully apparent. On the way home, the 6:30 bulletin from Radio Bahrain gave very brief details, and the 9 o'clock news gave a little more. The important aspect then was that the Iraqis had admitted that it was them that sent the missiles into the Stark, and that they were responsible, and that was a mistake. The evening Bahrain TV news gave the number of dead as 28, 25 missing and 25 dead and 3 missing, but as we know later on that number increased. Here's a photograph of the damage. As you can see, there are huge holes here, here and here. Now, a week after this event, I was on duty when another of the US warships felt it was under attack from, on this occasion, an Iranian aircraft, and I'll be making a video about this one too. And of course, as you can imagine, the captains of these warships after this event were particularly sensitive, and unfortunately this eventually culminated in the USS Vincennes shooting down a civilian Iran Air A300 with a great loss of life. That gives you an idea of the damage to the ship. This is the newspaper from the Gulf Daily News, which was the daily newspaper in Bahrain, which I bought the next day, Tuesday the 19th of May 1987. As you can see, the total is incorrect, but what is interesting in this photograph is that you can see the Smith Rangoon salvage vessel alongside, and you can just make out the spray from the hose, which is trying to keep the ship cool. I'm not going to read through this article. If you want to read it, I'll put it up and you can pause the video so that you can read it. So this is the top half of the front page. This is the text of the front page. Pause it now if you want to. And this is the continuation of the story on the inside page. So a couple of days later, on Friday, that week, Friday being the Muslim day off, I went into one of the hotels in Bahrain, in Manama, the capital, to go to brunch. Now, in those days, the wire services, as they were called, used to send their news using wire, using cable, to places around the world. The hotel that I went to had a news wire, and it was a Reuters news wire, and I found this. This I will read to you. Letter to President Reagan from President Hussein of Iraq, Washington, May 22nd, Reuters. Following is the text of a letter to President Reagan from Iraqi President Saddam Hussein, provided to Reuters by sources who asked not to be identified. Excellency, on the occasion of the funeral ceremony of the victims lost in the grievous and unintentional incident that has happened to the American frigate Stark, I would like to express to you once again my condolences and feelings of grief. May I also ask you to convey my heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims as they bid their dear ones last farewell. All the Iraqis and I feel most profoundly the sorrow of moments such as these, since we have ourselves lost a great many of our dear ones in this war which has been raging for 7 years, while the Iranian government still persists in perpetrating death and destruction, and in rejecting our appeals and those of the international community for a just and honourable peace, an objective no doubt that is long desired by all those who believe in God and in justice and brotherhood amongst peoples. We do not misrepresent the truth and its very essence when we stress with firm conviction that sorrow and regret are not enough to reflect the tragedy of the victims that have fallen as a result of this war and the confusion and complexity surrounding it. Amongst the victims are these sons of yours whom you are bidding farewell today. Here we are witnessing the circumstances of the war becoming even more complicated. The number of victims grow higher and higher, and the grave and painful consequences get more exacerbated because of the intransigence and anomalous stand of Iran. This makes it incumbent upon us to carry on tirelessly with our efforts to stop this bloody human tragedy which has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands, burnt with its flames the peoples of Iraq and Iran, caused anxiety to many others in the region and the world at large, and caused through its confusion and complexity the loss of people from other countries who were here in the area for various reasons. Rest assured that the grief which you feel as a result of the loss of your sons is our grief too. Our humane principles and the sentiments of friendship that we have toward peoples everywhere, including the people of the United States whose friendship we wish to preserve, make us sad to see anybody hurt by this war or by the immediate or long-term consequences it entails. I, as well as all Iraqis, share with you your grief in moments such as these and wish we could do anything that might alleviate the grief of the victims' families. Please accept our most deeply felt condolences. The letter dated May 21st is signed Saddam Hussein, President of the Republic of Iraq. And as I say, that came from the Reuters cable news. So that concludes all the information that I have. There's loads more online if you want to look for it. And this concludes the video on the attack on the USS Stark. I hope you found it of interest, and I'll speak to you soon in another video.